Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, the as still yet undefined, maybe somebody will for the 700th show, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am once again robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek singularity community. This is, of course, Robservations, the show about something, episode number 696. My God. So last night, as you know, we're doing the Robservations Midnighter, which is becoming a fun show. And on the Midnighter, I bring you on. I bring you imagination connoisseurs, you members of the Post-Geek singularity. You come on the show, we chat, you tell me what you think, whatever you think. And yeah, I've got a delay, so don't think you're going to bring your junk on. But you can if you try it. I'll zap you, but please don't. But it's been kind of a fun show, a little bit up and down sometimes. But last night we had a barn burner of a show. We had over 250 people in the live chat at midnight. So, well, midnight Pacific time. And we were talking about Star Wars, and it got me thinking it was Star Wars Day yesterday, the real Star Wars Day. None of that pretender, May the 4th be with you bullshit. But the actual anniversary, the 44th anniversary, the 44th birthday, if you will. I actually have the Star Wars birthday poster, the one sheet, 1 year old today. I need to get that and frame it and put it up because it's a rare poster. I own one. Thank you, Jonathan Rosenthal's father, who worked at Fox and got me one. So I was thinking about Star Wars, and it was funny. Mike Bodden says to me, he goes, I found a pretty interesting article in the New York Times, and I hadn't read the article. And it came out when Rise of Skywalker came out, and he said, maybe this could be something you could talk about. And I'm like, well, I should have talked about it yesterday, but better late than never. So I was kind of in a Star Wars mood, especially after last night. Actually, to be honest, it's still the same day because the Midnighters started on this day. So I... of course, was streaming with Midnight's Edge, and I lectured to 2 different classes today up in Northern California, virtually, of course. And now I'm talking again on this show, but I've had Star Wars on the brain. So why not continue on? Because I found this article to be quite interesting, and let's just start, because we're late anyway, right? Got great letters, by the way. You guys have not let me down. I still think that I have a Willow Yang letter, another Voyager letter, which I'm excited to jump into. So let's get into this. Let's talk Star Wars. You ready? Because, God, I bet you've never talked about Star Wars ever. Wow, it's a little hot in here. I did forget to. I'm a little schwitzy today because I forgot to turn on the air conditioner, which now is on. So there you go. It's on. So here is the article in question that I wanted to discuss. Look at this artwork. How cool is that? I love this. I want this on a T-shirt. Please, somebody, please put this on a T-shirt for me. Please, sir, may I have this T-shirt? Adam Maida did this piece of artwork. Now, this was in the New York Times. It's by Tim Creeder, and it says Mr. Creeder is an essayist and cartoonist, and this was published, I believe, well, somewhere here it says, 2019, December 2019 was when this, December 20th, 2019, there it is. We can't see Star Wars anymore. The cultural industry that the 1977 film spawned has ground its original charm and wonder out of existence. Now, before I read this article, I want to say it is pre-Mando, pre-Mandalorian, and pre-Bad Batch, but pre-Mandalorian. The release of the latest and allegedly last installment in the Skywalker saga, comprising the canonical triad of trilogies in the eternally expanding Star Wars universe, seems like an appropriate time to pose a wistful, little thought experiment. What if Star Wars, the original 1977 film, had performed at the box office about as everyone expected, in the range of a 70s Disney film, earning, say, 16 million. Let's imagine that some film historian or revisionist critic circa 2019 were to rediscover this forgotten gem, an oddity of 70s cinema buried amongst all the Watergate paranoia thrillers, demonic horror films, and disaster blockbusters. Can we, with 40 years retrospect, evaluate it as a film instead of a phenomenon? Before Star Wars became a commercial behemoth, most critics found it a charming diversion. The Times called it the most elaborate, most expensive, most beautiful movie serial ever made. They were bemused to see such high production values, state-of-the-art special effects, a full orchestral score, lavished on subject matter previously associated with cardboard props. It was, unlike all the tragic masterworks of American cinema of that decade, innocent good fun. Had innocent fun not become a cynical commodity and conquered the multiplex, George Lucas would still be remembered as a lesser member of the movie brats, and his third feature as a curious synthesis of his first two, THX 1138, a pessimistic future dystopia, and American Graffiti, a nostalgic homage to a bygone era. At the very least, Star Wars would be remembered as an interesting, if eccentric, children's film. A subversive sleeper like 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's dispiriting to recall the dismal crudscape of children's entertainment in the 70s, the indifference and contempt with which most of it was produced, Disney at its nadir, Benji movies, a lot of Saturday morning TV made by people on drugs. Are you referring to Lidsville? Star Wars was made with evident care by master craftsmen, Ralph McQuarrie, John Dykstra, Ben Burt, and John Williams, amongst others. There was humor in the film, but it took its world, its ethos, and its audience seriously. As almost every film that is not Star Wars demonstrates, it's extremely difficult to strike this balance between treating your subject with respect, but not too solemnly, being self-aware without condescension or camp. My God, please, people, if you're making franchise movies, as almost every film that is not Star Wars demonstrates, it's extremely difficult to strike this balance between treating your subject with respect, but not too solemnly, being self-aware without condescension or camp. Amen, people. Amen. Memorize that. Put it on a t-shirt for me. Mr. Lucas's interests as a filmmaker were initially abstract and formal. His ambitious avant-garde, watch his student film Electronic Labyrinth, THX 11384EB. So his reversion to traditional mythic plotting and what David Foster Wallace called single entendre values was so unfashionable as to be radical. His dialogue is as deliberately over the top as John Williams' comic opera blasts of sinister brass whenever we see the bad guys. Like other filmmakers in his cohort, Mr. Lucas crammed his films with allusions to the 1960s pantheon of auteurs, from Kurosawa to Ford, and some grad student might revisit Star Wars as a postmodern mashup of American film genres, Western gunslingers and World War II dogfights, Flynn and Rathbone dueling, Tarzan and Jane on the Vine. As Umberto Eco said of Casablanca, it's not one movie, it is the movies. Now that it's one franchise among many, Star Wars seems timeless, but the original is very much a product of the 1970s. Mr. Lucas began writing it while American troops were still in Vietnam and Nixon was being consumed by his dark side. It's remembered now as a proto-Reagan-esque reactionary backlash against the morally ambiguous cinema of the 1970s, but it's also a countercultural, anti-fascist fable about shaggy young outsiders fighting a revolution against the faceless, armored henchmen of a military technocracy. The Empire is comfortably identified with our favorite movie enemies, the Nazis, which helps disguise the fact that they are also, metaphorically, the imperialist invaders of Vietnam, confident in their devastating firepower to crush an ill-equipped insurgency. This subplot got a lot less subtextual in Return of the Jedi, in which the occupiers' superweapons are thwarted by the guerrilla tactics and crude booby traps of a pre-technological people. By the time James Cameron's Avatar made this allegory painfully overt, it felt uncomfortably weird watching American audiences cheer fantasies of indigenous peoples defeating capitalist invaders bent on exploiting their resources, even as our own battle droids were blowing up insurgents in oil-rich Iraq. You could imagine Al-Qaeda or Timothy McVeigh identifying with Luke blowing up the Death Star. plucky underdogs destroying symbols of invincible power with dollar store equipment and an audacious suicide plan. How did we end up on the wrong side of this story? Lots of critics pointed out that the coda of Star Wars, when three heroes march up a corridor between columns of masked soldiers, is a visual quote of the wreath-laying at Nuremberg in Triumph of the Will. But everyone seems to assume this is a random allusion devoid of historical context. It's not as if Mr. Lucas was oblivious of the source. His film is full of fascist iconography, all up until this moment associated with the Empire. Assuming this final image is deployed intentionally, it might be most hopefully interpreted as a warning. Don't become the thing you've fought against. The intimation of a hidden kinship between our hero and his enemy was right there in Darth Vader's name all along, the Dark Father. The ostensible moral of Star Wars is anti-technology, pro-feelings, very 70s sensibility. The Empire is a rigid militaristic hierarchy obsessed with its high-tech weaponry, but underlying it is an older tradition represented by Darth Vader that's religious, mystic. The technological terror is obliterated, but Vader escapes. Like Sauron, he can't be destroyed, only driven out. It's a prescient parable for our own governing technocrats, who thought they were exploiting atavistic fanatics to do their bidding, only to learn too late that the force of hatred was more powerful, and they'd been its servants all along. Star Wars is ultimately a religious film, one of a wave of them in the decade of the Jesus movement, films as disparate as The Exorcist, Oh God, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a caution against allowing your humanity to be effaced. The stormtroopers and Vader are masked, robotic, like the police and surveillors in THX 1138. Isaac Asimov's Foundation novels and influence on Star Wars describe how, when people lose faith in science, it must be presented to them in the guise of religion to get them to accept it again. Star Wars did the opposite, selling religion and traditional values back to people disenchanted with the church in alluring futuristic packaging. Whether the message or the packaging prevailed is hard to gauge. The generations raised on Star Wars did not exactly heed Obi-Wan's advice to turn off their computers and dread catching feelings. But the religion Mr. Lucas invented, based vaguely on 70s West Coast Zen, is now an official one. Jediism received tax-exempt status in the United States in 2015. The success of Star Wars have obviated a lot of its original virtues. Much of the fun of watching the film for the first time, now forever inaccessible to us, was in the slow unveiling of its universe. Swords made of lasers, a Bigfoot who co-pilots a spaceship, a swing band of 50s UFO aliens. Mr. Lucas refuses to explain anything, keeping the viewer as off balance as a jet-lagged tourist in Benares or Times Square. We don't see the film's hero until 17 minutes in. We're kept watching not by plot, but by novelty and curiosity. Subsequent sequels, tie-in novels, interstitial TV shows, video games, and fan fiction have lovingly ground the charm out of existence with exhaustive, literal-minded explication. Every marginal background character now has a name and a backstory, every offhand allusion a history. But Mr. Lucas's universe just doesn't have the depth of Tolkien's Middle-earth. It was only ever meant to be sketched, not charted. Sequels and tie-ins, afraid to stray too far off-brand, stick to variations on familiar designs and revive old characters, so there's nothing new to discover. Mr. Lucas continued to pursue avant-garde ambitions and subversive 70s agenda. The only other films he ever directed, the prequels, are the most depressing blockbusters of all time. Kids' adventure films whose boy hero ends up a baby killer. The only other American movies comparable to them in this regard are the Godfather trilogy made by Mr. Lucas's mentor, Francis Ford Coppola. We literally can't see Star Wars anymore. Its control-freakish creator won't allow the original version of the film to be seen, and has stubbornly masculated his own masterpiece, second-guessing correct editing decisions, restoring wisely deleted scenes, and replacing his breakthrough special effects, historic artifacts in their own right, with 90s vintage CGI, already more dated than the film's original effects. There may come a day a long time from now, after Disney's vampirically extended copyrights have expired and all the accumulated cultural detritus has eroded away, when people will have forgotten Star Wars and can finally see it again. Seen anew, much of its imagery is surreally beautiful. The vast plated underside of an armored starship sliding on and on forever overhead, the dreamlike tableaus seen through a scrim of smoke and framed by concentric portals of a girl shrouded in white, furtively genuflecting to a robot. A golden android waving for help in a desert by the skeleton of a dinosaur. A convoy of space fighters opening their split wings in sequence, like poisoned flowers blossoming. Perhaps its most iconic image epitomizes its genius for making the corniest cliches strange and new. A bored kid stuck in the middle of a nowhere town, looking to the horizon, yearning for better things. No different from Dorothy in dusty Kansas or the teenagers in Modesto watching the setting of a double star. I want to thank Mike Bodden for sending that to me. I love that article. I hadn't read it before. And again, it was from the New York Times when Rise of Skywalker had come out, which arguably is one of the most soulless movies I've ever seen. And a movie that offers nothing new, no wonder, and just leaves you with a lingering question, how did that happen? Meaning the return of Emperor Palpatine, which the story really doesn't bother to explain. There's not even a flashback sequence to explain how he got out of the Death Star 2 before it exploded. I guess it doesn't matter. But it does matter. And Star Wars matters, just like Star Trek matters. And the people that are custodians of these things, much like Princess Leia was the custodian of the stolen plans to the first Death Star, they matter. It's important. It's important to our culture. It's important to our society. And as I like the future. I'm a corporatist. I like corporations. But you know what I don't like? I don't like when corporations own art and they start with their corporate interests. They start making artistic decisions. Corporations are diametrically opposed. The interests of a corporation is diametrically opposed to those of artists or storytellers. The funny thing is what corporations really want are great stories to exploit. But if they put their own corporate interests before the stories that are getting made under their own auspices, you're not going to get good stories and you're going to be left with nothing to exploit. No, I would propose a new strategy aside from letting the Wookiee win. My new strategy would be, if these larger and larger corporate entities, if they expect to make a profit, what they should be doing is carving out a section of call it their profits, whatever, and fostering artistic expression. They should be cultivating new filmmakers and filmmakers that have been around for a long time. They should let those filmmakers dream up things on their own. They should see it as R&D for the future of the corporations to succeed. If you want visions that are going to permeate the consciousness of the world, you can't make those decisions of what those things might be on a corporate spreadsheet. They have to come out of the creators themselves. And that's what Star Wars did. You basically had one corporate executive, one man, Alan Ladd Jr. I mean, even Universal didn't even think American Graffiti was a good movie. They were surprised by its success. And across town, Alan Ladd Jr. said, let's bet on that kid. The rest is history. What a decision. One man deciding, 20th Century Fox should make this movie. And so they did. There's a lesson there. And the lesson is, corporate interests, nobody who works at corporations can look at a spreadsheet and understand what's going to connect with the public. You can do all the marketing research you want. But when it comes to things like movies, what you need is the magic, the alchemy of film. You need the Rumpelstiltskins who are going to spin straw into gold. That's what you need. If you don't have that, you're lost. And we're running in short supply of those kinds of people. They're being bled out of the industry, and to the industry's peril. As larger and larger corporate mergers take place, people forget. Why did entertainment companies become desirable in the first place? Why are we having the streaming wars? We're having the streaming wars because people love entertainment. And why do people love entertainment? Because great minds have been making entertainment since the dawn of time. And movies and television are the most potent art form in history. And what we're not doing is we're not cultivating the people that we're going to need to continue to make not just new iterations of IP that corporations already own, but new IP, brand new IP no one's yet dreamed up, that are going to be the new IPs that new generations embrace, that are going to be around for another 44 years. Why corporations are not doing that and charting that up or chalking it up to R&D, I'll never understand. We need new IPs. We need new dreamers. We need people that are going to come in, talented filmmakers, and create things we haven't seen yet. And if we're not going to have those things, where are we going to be as a culture? Hell, as a species in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? I think the thing about Star Wars, more than anything else, what to remember is it shows what the power of one man's imagination, aided by the power of a bunch of other people's imaginations, including people like Ralph McQuarrie, Ben Burtt, John Williams. Let's not forget George Lucas's wife, Marcia, whose contributions to the editorial of Star Wars are probably immeasurable. But that's what we need more of. And that's what these larger and larger entertainment companies should be keeping their eyes on the prize and be doing things like cultivating new filmmakers and not worrying about whether or not they're going to succeed. What filmmakers need is an environment where they can be trusted to make whatever it is they want to make. Don't try and think it in advance, because can you imagine in 75, 76, when Alan Ladd pulled the trigger? What if he'd asked the marketing department whether or not Star Wars should get made? And the marketing department said, well, our current research says no one's really interested in science fiction films. I mean, what came out in the last couple of years? We had Rollerball, and we had Zardoz, and The Ultimate Warrior, and there was Clockwork Orange, just kind of sci-fi, and Battle for the Planet of the Apes. We shouldn't make that. And look what happened. How many visions that should have been made of marketing departments killed over the last 10 years since they rose to prominence in Hollywood? Remember, the Warner Brothers marketing department would tell you that the only reason Inception made any money was because they knew how to market the shit out of that movie. Well, I say perhaps the movie made money because Christopher Nolan was showing people something they'd never seen before. Maybe that's why it made money. Not because of the marketing, but because it was a good movie. Christopher Nolan dreamed up something no one had ever seen. Luckily, he earned the ability to make it by making The Dark Knight, which earned a lot of money for the studio. So the studio said, okay, Chris, we want you to make The Dark Knight Rises. You go right ahead and make whatever it is you think you need to make. And look what happened. Epic win for everyone. So I would say, who are the people that are going to champion the new IPs? The IPs we don't even know yet. The IPs we've never heard of because no one's dreamed them up. Where are the corporations that are going to do that? Huh? Because we better do it. Because in this world of corporate mergers and acquisitions and consolidation, no one ever talks about, well, where are the people that are going to dream up these new great IPs? These things that no one's yet dreamed of. Why aren't we giving money? Why aren't we using money? Other companies, drug companies, how much money do they spend on R&D? Big Pharma knows. I think these entertainment companies would want to be cultivating this kind of thing, but you don't hear much about them wanting to do it. I think they should. Anyway, just a thought on the day after the real Star Wars Day. I don't know what y'all think of that, but I invite you to tell me. There's a lot of letters. Ooh, boy. Lot of letters. Let's start, shall we? This next one's... I'm going to start with Emil Johansson. I like this one, Emil. Rob, I've been thinking. I think fantasies are evil. That's what my Sunday school teacher tried to teach me when I got caught. Oh, no, I'm kidding. That didn't happen. Rob, I've been thinking. I think fantasies are evil. Well, not really. But I'd like to argue they are anyway, because it's fun. When people make up fantasies and they're idealistic, they make up a world better than the real world. They make up a world that is kind and warm and great. However, what if people start to think this world that people made up is real? Expecting the world to be kind is dangerous. It can make people entitled and then unable to handle situations where there is harshness and there's nothing they can do about it. Having a group of people follow an idealistic world separates them from the group of people living in the real one. This can create a rift and a conflict. But still, a movie can't be realistic, can it? I mean, Batman Begins tried, Man of Steel tried. But are they realistic? Are they? Are we as human beings even capable of dreaming up a world that is real? A world without plot holes and with accurate physics? Would any action movie even exist then? We don't have plot armor in real life. Yet we try. We try and make lies believable. And we try not to have science fiction futures be dystopian but hopeful. And maybe there isn't anything wrong with that, but I find it hard to argue that point regardless. I think maybe the answer is somewhere in between. Well, I would say this, Emil. I mean, a story is a fantasy. It always will be a fantasy, and it's really up to you as the peruser of that to decide whether it's real or not. I mean, look, one of my favorite movies of all time is Amélie, Jean-Pierre Genet's Amélie. I feel that when I saw it in Sitges. I saw Pulse, Cairo, Kyushu Kurosawa's movie, and then I saw Amélie. And I have to say, of all the movies I've ever seen in my life, I felt that Amélie just reached down to my very soul, presenting a whimsical worldview that I bought into entirely. I cried like a baby. Well, not like a baby. I was like, but I had those involuntary tears streaming down my face, like when Amélie finds the little box of treasures in her bathroom and figures out how to return it to the guy who owns it. And he opens up the box, and the way he plays that scene, I mean, man, I lost my shit. I totally related to that. And that movie really spoke to me. Is that real? It was a fantasy, but at least it spoke to how I would like the world to be, even though I know the world isn't that way. But Jean-Pierre Genet is saying in Amélie, why not? It can be if you want it to be. It's up to you. You make the world what you want it to be, just like Amélie Poulain did. And, interesting. Anyway, don't know what you have to say about all of that, but here's another one. Our friend Pedro Ferreira. Pedro, how are you? Pedro writes in and says, hello, Rob. I just want to make sure my film review of Free Enterprise that I typed last year wasn't too critical. I didn't think so. I read it the other day. I think I gave the film 8 out of 10, which isn't too bad. I didn't plan to share my review, but people in the live chat encouraged me to take the opportunity as they wanted to hear my thoughts on the film. As the website offers submitting reviews, I thought, all right, why not? Anyway, I'm writing to tell you... Oh, hang on. I'm writing to tell you I may be having an existential crisis. It was my birthday last Wednesday, and around that time I normally question my career and life, where it's going and what I can do about it. It's kind of depressing, as I always seem to end up back at square one. Uncertainty at 38 about making the type of progress others have made in their lives already always bugs me. On Twitter, I recently had to block someone as well as a fan of theirs I spoke about in a previous letter because it's my birthday and I don't want their spam responses filling up my notifications. This particular person I blocked should know better because of their position of power. I have an anxiety disorder and I don't need that stress on my birthday, thank you. I applied some months ago for a media placement, one of many I might add, through an organization called Creative Access, which helps people of underrepresented backgrounds and disabilities get a job in the industry. I ended up getting a placement rejection email on my birthday. I suppose they couldn't have known, but it still hurts a little. For those types of opportunities, I really do feel they should be prioritizing by age, not race or gender. Everyone who wants the opportunity should be given the chance. Oh, don't I wish the world worked that way. But more times than not, the people that get given the chance are those that just came out of university. Remember, I've been trying for this industry since 2005. Now, in one of my first letters to you, I did mention I'd fallen through the cracks, but I also imagine others have as well. I don't want this to sound too biased because partly it is, but people who have been trying to get into the industry for many years should be given top priority. I don't know how much use I could be working for you, but in some creative role within the industry, I feel my talent isn't being utilized. This is why I always get kind of depressed around my birthday. Suffice to say, my ability to interact and send letters or reviews here is my only way to communicate any skill or talent I have. On a more interesting note, I was going through some old comics. The comics I used to read when I was a kid was Marvel's Real Ghostbusters comic. Some would act snobbish and say, well, you don't know comics because it wasn't the superhero ones. But the Real Ghostbusters comic was pretty awesome fun, even with its terrible puns. The early issues were very well edited as well. Marvel did a lot better with the RGB comic in the UK than now did with the Real Ghostbusters comic in North America. While I missed some issues, I was a longtime reader and even won a Marvel competition at one point for a special Real Ghostbusters prizes. I think it was for 1991. Anyway, the comic had a letters Q&A page where you could talk to Peter Venkman or ask questions to him. Attached to the letter you're reading is a scan from the page where I've sent my own letter. I believe it was the 30th of December 1989, that issue. I would have been about 7 years old, and I know my sister helped me construct the letter, but also helped send it off. As you can see, even at 7 years old, I was an imagination connoisseur. Kind regards, Pedro. I'm going to read this letter. Wow, it is. It's a letter of comment page. Wow, here we go. Pedro says, this is from the Real Ghostbusters comic from 1989. Could you answer these questions for me? 1. What are the proton packs made out of? And 2. When was the first time you all met? Pedro Ferreira, Fulham. Well, here's the answer to Pedro. Okay, let me see. Well, the basic constituent of our backpacks is a nuclear accelerator, so that's why they're pretty dangerous and pretty darn heavy as well. 2. Oh, way back when we were at university. Well, that was Egon, Ray, and me anyway. The first time Winston, Janine, and us met was at the fire station when Winston answered our job advertisement. That's pretty cool. I guess Egon answered those questions for you because you know Egon, a fictional character, could answer your letters in the back of their magazine. I like that. Well, Pedro, this is a tough one. I get a number of people asking me about what is the best way to get into the industry. And the first thing I tell people is don't go do something, anything, but try and get into the entertainment industry because it is an awful, thankless place. I mean, you can make a movie like Braveheart, like Mel Gibson, and then when you try and raise money for your next project, The Passion of the Christ, nobody wants to give it to you. So you have to go out and raise it yourself. There is we always hear about the successful people, but I guarantee you for the 100 great successful people that are currently working in Hollywood today that you've heard of, not including actors, people who are working in the industry, you're probably dealing with 100,000 people that are eking out a meager existence, me being one of them. It is a very unforgiving place. You know how I always say the universe is indifferent to your suffering? So is Hollywood. Nobody cares. And in terms of trying to get into the industry, the thing is Hollywood is the one industry where you can make your own way. You can go make something. Now it's easier to make something than ever. You have equipment in your own phone you can use to make a film. But if you're expecting other people to give you something, it's never going to happen. I mean, it might, but for the most part, you have to resolve yourself to the fact that it's never going to happen. I don't know. When you send in letters and things like that, it's tough. I mean, you can't not send in letters, but I know it's frustrating. You might be banging your head against a wall for 10 years. I think it was Meyer who said it takes 10 years to become an overnight success in Hollywood. And it's true. The real question is, and I think it's hard for all of us as people to understand, is you have to be realistic about your abilities and what it is you expect to have happen. Because even if you work in the entertainment business, I'll tell you, even I am going through some postpartum depression. Like Tango Shalom, right? It is what it is, but I worked on it for 5 years. I read a review of it. It was a fairly positive review, but it talked about that it was, say, amateurishly made. And I'm like, it's the best thing I've ever edited. But either way, that it's a small independent movie. And when I say small, it's very small. I'm really proud of the work that was done in Tango Shalom, but I'm under no illusions that it is what it is. And I chose to work on it for as long as I worked on it. Otherwise, if I didn't, it never would be anywhere. Last night it played at a drive-in in Washington, D.C. It's going home to Brooklyn, where the movie was shot at the Brooklyn Film Festival on June 10th. It's going to the Buenos Aires International Film Festival, and it's going to the Madrid International Film Festival. And it's also, I just sent it to Japan. Will the movie ever make any money? I don't know. Will it ever be recognized as a work of genius? Probably not. It's something that you might stumble across and go, oh, that was good. I'm really proud of the work I did. I'm really proud of the entire cast and crew, but it's not like that movie's going to go on and achieve monumental financial success. So the question is, should I have done it? Shouldn't I have done something else? And the answer to that question is no. I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed taking that movie that was done for a very low budget and turning it into something that I think is eminently watchable. I recruited some of my friends to work on it, like Darren Doctorman and Tobias Richter, people I'd worked with before who actually did some effects work for me. It turned out great. Now, you have to decide what it is you really want. A lot of people think that the entertainment business is that you come in here and suddenly, you slide down a rainbow into someone's basement that's full of money. And it doesn't usually work that way. So I would say, look, every year you're going to have another birthday, God forbid. You're going to be here for a long time. And the real question is, what are you going to do now to be proactive in whatever dream you want to achieve? Why are you waiting? Why are you sending out letters and waiting for people to tell you yay or nay? And again, it's easy for me to say, why don't you go out and do something? But I've always been of that mindset. Just go out and do something. The first job that I ever had in Hollywood was not the first job, the first editorial job I ever had in Hollywood. So my friend Dan Schweiger called me up and he said, listen, I want you to go work with Peter Billingsley. And I'm like, wait, the kid from A Christmas Story? Don't shoot your eye out, Ralphie? Yeah, you're going to go work with Peter Billingsley. And your first job at Full Moon is there's a movie called Arcade. And the home video release was terrible. We retransferred all the negative. And what you're going to do is you're just going to drop in the new visual effects where the old ones once went because the old ones are so terrible. I'm like, okay. And you're going to work with Peter Billingsley, who not only was in the movie, but he was the assistant editor as well. So this is back in 1993. So Peter and I, we spent 6 months of our lives doing that. But when I first started, I looked at all this footage from the original movie because I didn't know the original movie was literally edited in 7 days. I looked at the footage and I said to Peter, I go, there's a much better movie here than is represented by this cut of the movie that we have now. And Peter's like, I know, we had to shoot it, we had to finish it in 7 days, and and I go, well, why don't we recut this movie? And Peter said, well, that's not really our mandate. We're just supposed to reassemble the new negative and then drop in these new effects. And I said, yeah, but even the effects that we're getting, you're getting one energy ball going around a corner. Well, because we're finishing on video, you could turn that energy ball into 3 different shots. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you have an energy ball coming around the corner this way, then you turn the shot this way, so then it goes this way, so it can go weir, and then have it come another way, so it looks like it went through a twisty corridor instead of just one thing. And suddenly you've created a moment that didn't previously exist. And what if our characters are being pursued by this energy ball? You show them running, and you intercut them running with each shot. It's the same shot. We've just turned it or zoomed in or do something. And he was like, well, can you do that? And I was, sure, absolutely you can. Of course, we didn't have authorization, so I called up Dan. I said, Dan, Arcade's terrible, dude. It's terrible. And right now, I was just happy to have a job. And he's like, yeah, man, I know it's terrible. It's not good. And I said, okay, well, what if we recut the movie? And of course, at first, Dan's freaking out. It's like, you can't. I go, why not? And I think it was Dan who said, well, what do you know about recutting? What do you know about editing movies? I'm like, well, I got an A in my editing course at USC. And so I convinced him, and Dan went to Charlie Band, the head of Full Moon. Charlie and Albert were running Full Moon at the time, and presented my idea. Can we try recutting this movie because we can make it much better than it was, turn it into something? So we had a week, maybe a week or two, and we recut the entire first 10 minutes of the movie, vastly different than what it was before, and we turned it in. Now, here's the thing. I might have known, like I know that I'm no genius, but I'm enough of a journeyman that I can take something that was bad and I can make it better. That's what I know I'm good at. I think I'm a good editor. I think I'm actually a great editor. Am I an excellent editor? I don't know. Am I an Academy Award-winning editor? Probably not. But I'm a really good editor, I think. if I do say so myself. So we recut this movie. We turned in the first 10 minutes, and Charlie Band looked at it, could not believe it. Couldn't believe it. He's like, this is a whole different movie. I go, I know. And since we were getting these new effects, and they were much better than the old effects, Peter and I spent 6 months. At one point, they ran out of money. Dan had to call me and say, hey, man, we don't have any more money for you. I'm like, it's all right. I was so invested by this point. I mean, we did everything. We're working with Alan Howarth to do the sound design and the score. We're working with Bob Sachter, our color timer, color grader, and we're going to make this movie. We turned something that was literally unwatchable to something that was pretty mediocre. But we were damn proud of that mediocrity. And it was actually nominated for Best Direct-to-Home Video Release of 1993, defeated by, I want to say Dragon something. Why am I a Dragon's Tale? No, it was Dragon something. But it was from the kids label that Full Moon had. So we got defeated by another Full Moon movie. And people like it, even to this day. But the point of this entire story is that we just decided to do it. We just did it. Of course, we asked for permission to do it, but we had to be the ones that were like, you know what, we could do this. We could make this happen. And we did. And the lesson being is that in Hollywood, if you're waiting for people to write you back to give you their approval to get to where you're going, you're never going to get it. Now, the question I know you're going to ask me is, well, Rob, how do I start? What do I do? Well, I don't know exactly what it is you want to do, but I would say this. You've got to be more proactive than just sending in letters to try and make some phone calls if you can. I know you've talked about your disability and things like that. Maybe you're not good at that. Then, maybe find somebody who can pretend they're your secretary. I mean, I hate to say it, but when you're trying to get a job, bend the truth a little. Have your mom call. Hello, this is Pedro. I'm calling for so-and-so. Pedro would just like to check on the status of blah, blah, blah. You never know. Stranger things have happened in Hollywood. But I would say that don't get down on yourself because, look, you only lead one life. And I know it's tough. I know it's a pain in the ass. But it's up to you. And this community will always be here that you can use it and avail yourself of. I don't know if I've given you any advice that's worthwhile right now today. But it's hard. This business is unforgiving. And just because you've been trying to get into this business does not mean you're ever going to get in. And I don't mean that to sound harsh. It's just the truth. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. It ain't show friends. It's show business. And trying hard in this business, it doesn't work either. When you say that people in this have been trying to get into the industry for many years should be given top priority, that kind of thing is just never, ever going to happen. It's never going to happen really anywhere, And I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but, I would say maybe find out, target specifically what it is you want to do. You didn't say what you wanted to do in this letter. You just said you wanted to get in the industry. I don't even know what that means. Like, I wanted to write and direct movies at some point, produce movies, edit movies, but my first job was as the art department production assistant on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Now, I knew that had nothing to do with where I wanted to go, but I'll tell you something. Working on movie sets taught me more than I'd ever learned in film school or from reading something in a book. It's crazy. But listen, keep writing in. You're a part of the Post-Geek Singularity. Whatever we can do, whatever advice that we can offer, we're here. So remember that. And everyone here is rooting for you. Tell me what you want. What is it you want? What is exactly what you want? Where do you want to see yourself? Because I don't know. And then maybe I can actually give you some kind of a roadmap. Ronald E. Hall writes in and says, Brother Rob, better known as the notorious RMB. Despite I've been looking at your lovely mug and listening to you daily for damn near every day for years, this is my first letter to you. I've decided to pop my cherry over an idea I've had for decades, and I wanted to share with our geek singularity. Here goes. Hashtag Ron Hall fixes Darth Vader and the Star Wars prequels. In parentheses, he says, thank me later. I would like to congratulate myself as the man who will go down in history for fixing both the Star Wars prequels and its central character, Darth Vader. If you were anywhere near my old age, you may recall when Star Wars was out, George Lucas would say in interviews, if you like Star Wars, the really cool shit was before Star Wars during the Clone Wars. That's the good stuff. We see a young Darth Vader grow, betray, and destroy the Jedi. That's the real story. Awesome stuff, right? Right. But we never got that movie. Instead, we got a string of movies that are Star Wars-like, about trade federations, droid armies, and tariffs, attacking Vader's betrayal at nearly the end for a very unsatisfying and frustrating conclusion. It was okay, but Star Wars is not supposed to be just okay. And it's that single premise that is what kept us forking out Star Wars big bucks all these past decades. That damn George Lucas, the ultimate tease or deep pocket mad genius, you decide. Well, some may say I'm a little out of my lane, being Ron Hall, martial arts movie master and all, but I believe I've single-handedly fixed Star Wars. I know that's a heavy-duty proclamation, but ride with me for a minute. We'll get there. The problem with both the prequels and Darth Vader is in portraying the most villainous scum in all of the galaxy and in cinema as a little innocent, bland, unassuming little boy. Nah, that's not Vader. But you know who is? Carrie. That's who. Yep, Carrie is Darth Vader. Now, for those of you too young to remember, Carrie was a Brian De Palma classic based on a Stephen King novel about a young woman who possesses telekinesis and when pranked kills her entire high school class, teachers, and mother too. It wasn't that she was so bad or evil, she just had issues. Issues so powerful it destroyed Carrie and everything around her. That's Darth Vader. A kid with a power beyond his comprehension and control that must be monitored, studied, and manipulated by, you got it, the Jedi. They take this little kid in and discover he's too damn powerful. What the F? They fear him. Some even resent him. But they have little choice than to keep him close because they don't know what to do. But you know who does? That's right, Palpatine. He knows exactly what to do with the confused, dejected, powerful, potentially unhinged dark force of nature. Make him his number one enforcer in his quest to rule the galaxy. See, the way Lucas has it, you never once believed that the cute little innocent, unassuming boy who builds robots and races pods would ever become the baddest mofo in the galaxy. But as Carrie, it makes all kind of sense and you believe. Vader then becomes the tragic hero destroyed by powers and circumstances beyond his reason and control, and when he dies combating that urge, he is both heroic and tragic, a character who now lives up to his role as the most iconic villain of all time. Also, instead of having Obi-Wan, his mentor and almost father, go to kill him, which makes Obi-Wan seem like a betraying coward, have Obi-Wan go save him, only to discover Anakin is so corrupted, he is forced to stop him. These two simple things can change the course of the prequels and give Anakin the foundation to become Darth Vader we believe in. Fear and love to hate. As it stands, no way can you convince me a cute pod racer with fat dimples becomes the most treacherous villain in all the galaxy and Star Wars and cinema. I don't buy it. I never bought it. And you don't either. Lucasfilm, thank me later. You reading this can thank me now. Hashtag Ron Hall fixes Darth Vader and the Star Wars prequels. P.S. I want to end by commending you on how you've grown as a broadcaster in these past few years. You, my man, are rapidly ascending to the height of your powers. Boy, that's what she said. Ha. And no doubt, all kinds of wonderful geekiness will emerge from it. That's very nice of you to say, sir. Peace out, my brother. Ron Hall, a.k.a. Kung Fu Brother. Well, I like that idea. I mean, it's a quick idea, but unfortunately, I think that you're a little late sharing these ideas. Maybe back in 97, you should have hooked up with George and said, hey, bruh, I've got some ideas. I've got some ideas with you. For you. We'll implement those ideas together. Texas Steve is here. Texas Steve. Hey, Rob, big fan. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. I just want to let you know that when you mention other YouTubers, the algorithm starts recommending them to me. Checking them out, I was really surprised. You know what? Sasha Grey has a YouTube channel. Algorithm. Checking them out, I was really surprised how hyper negative these other folks are. They like to predict the future in the bleakest of views based on mostly nothing. Really, they seem like complete assholes. P.S. I like it when your show focuses on success stories, things you love, and insight into film making. Thanks, Steve. Well, look, people ask me that a lot. I have to tell you, today I am very fond of the folks over at Midnight's Edge. Andre, Rob, Tom. I think they're great. And we did a great stream today that went on forever about Honor Majesty's Secret Service, and I really enjoyed it. And I think, at one point, there is I don't let the frustration get to me, but I am enormously frustrated with a lot of the creators currently working on these projects. And seeing the creative missteps. I mean, we all fans believe that, hey, man, I could do it better if only I had my shot. I could totally do it better, Well, maybe. I don't know if I could do it better. I know, like, for instance, if I worked on Star Trek and I was able to be somehow rules would allow me to be in the writer's room and consult, I think I could make the show better. Or they wouldn't like my ideas, and I would say, well, gotta go. If you don't like my ideas, it's your loss. But I know I could help them out, but when are you ever going to get into that position? But I think that there is a real problem with our entertainment. And I think that while a lot of these channels, a lot of them are resoundingly negative. We're in a time where, after all, I mean, I don't think anyone's on YouTube for any length of time because they just like doing it. It becomes lucrative. You can actually make a living doing it, and it's fun. But I think I really like the people that I stream with, and while they can be negative, they haven't really been negative to me. And I like when we get together, I really enjoy streaming with them. Like, one of my favorite YouTubers, bar none, is Critical Drinker. And the Critical Drinker can be very, very critical of people, but he's critical from a story analyst's point of view, which I always appreciate. Like, he doesn't just go after somebody to go after them. He'll make a joke about Kathleen Kennedy or something, but he's joking. And what the Critical Drinker is saying is like, hey, man, I'm a writer. I'm a novelist. You can buy my novels. It's true, by the way, the Critical Drinker is a novelist. And he is making his own stories and getting them published and putting them out there. And I think that, people can be negative, but the point is that we're not always negative. And I try and not be negative. As you know, I like pretty much everything. I feel like I'm incredibly blessed and privileged to be working in the industry that I am working in. It's pretty great. But I understand, maybe the analytics will take you to Sasha Gray's channel now, which actually is full of positivity, to be honest. So, yeah. Let's see this. What's next? You know what? I'm just gonna jump right into Willow Yang's letter about Voyager, because I've really been loving her letters about Voyager. Basically, I love Willow Yang. Who doesn't? But I have particular love for her because I read her letters and I feel we have a connection. Willow says, "Oh, hi, Rob. Continuing on with my review of episodes from Voyager, something I'm sure Joseph strongly approves of, I have not too long ago had the opportunity to join Torrin Atkinson and his friends on a watch-along of the doubleheader Meld and Revulsions." Wait a minute, did you actually go to Torrin's house? Did you guys hang out together? I am so jelly. Both of which, of course, involved serial killers. I am writing to discuss the former. To give a recap, Neelix harasses Tuvok about some ancient Vulcan festival that involves naked oil wrestling, something that Neelix wants to attempt on board the Voyager to raise morale. Tuvok gets called into engineering, where a dead body had been found. The crewman, who's ironically named Darwin, has apparently been bludgeoned to death. After an investigation, Tuvok and company were able to zero in on a prime suspect, Suter, a former member of the Maquis, and also a Betazed. Suter very quickly confesses to the crime, as someone in our watch-along group stated, this is the shortest murder mystery ever, but fails to provide a logical motive for it. Unsatisfied with his explanation, or more accurately, lack thereof, Tuvok mind melds with Suter. As a result, Suter becomes calm and controlled, while Tuvok is filled with violent, murderous impulses. Sometimes later, Neelix harasses Tuvok again, and finally, having had enough, Tuvok strangles him to death to the applause of thousands of viewers across the country. Unfortunately, however, the writers were just trolling the audience because, as it turned out, this completely justifiable murder was actually a holodeck simulation. Unable to control his violent tendencies, Tuvok confines himself to his quarters. The doctor attempts to treat him but fails, and finally Tuvok seeks out Suter again to kill him but is successfully dissuaded by the latter and instead mind melds with him and him again, regaining his control in the process. In a side plot, Paris begins a gambling ring over replicator rations but gets caught and shut down by Chakotay. I really enjoyed Meld, and my viewing experience was only enhanced by having watched it with a group of people as they made commentary and quips throughout the episode. I really loved seeing Star Trek do a crime thriller in the vein of Silence of the Lambs. My one major criticism of the episode is that I found the side plot of Paris starting a gambling ring to be a complete waste of time. It didn't provide anything interesting or even amusing, and it did nothing more than distract from the much more compelling main storyline. It felt to me like a case of the writers just trying to add some filler to get the episode to its obligatory 45-minute runtime. I think, however, that they could have instead invested more time delving into the human psychology and nature. And yes, I know that neither Suter nor Tuvok are humans, but they're clearly meant to be analogs for humans here. I would have liked to have seen more of the conversation between the two central characters. And this leads me to what I believe is the greatest strength of the episode, the performances. I haven't really cared that much for Tuvok up to this point, and that's probably in part because I haven't seen all that many episodes focusing on the character. Meld provided an opportunity for Tim Russ to shine, and he did, with a compelling portrayal of a highly disciplined and intelligent person who's losing control of their most primal urges. In some ways, Meld is reminiscent of the acclaimed and poignant Next Generation episode Sarek in depicting the passions that Vulcans have to keep suppressed, and one has to question whether that sort of repression is actually healthy. If it is actually worth it to achieve a highly advanced state and productive society. And while some may find Tuvok's breakdown in sickbay to be a little too over the top, I actually think it's completely appropriate given all the pent-up emotions that the character has accumulated over the years. My only disappointment with the aforementioned scene is that I do wish Neelix could have been present. I'm sure that Tuvok would have had a few choice words to say to him. Then, of course, there's the guest actor brought onto this episode, Brad Dourif. Of course, Star Trek already previously had the Academy Award-winning Louise Fletcher on Deep Space Nine, and it was great seeing them bring another actor from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, although Dorf is probably now better known for his depiction of Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. I thought he was superb with his creepy but still nuanced portrayal of the serial killer Suter. He was able to be both chilling but also at times sympathetic as a person who's just unable to control his most savage and violent desires. I will end this letter with a few thoughts on Meld. Firstly, I do find it somewhat interesting that the episode chose to have a Betazed as the serial killer rather than a human or another humanoid alien. At the risk of being a Betazoist, I've always found their black eyes to be a bit unsettling. Notably, Chakotay describes Suter as being a typical Betazoid who kept to himself. Someone in our watch-along group inquired whether a Betazoid has ever appeared in any other Star Trek series apart from the Next Generation. Now that I think about it, I don't recall that happening, unless you count Lwaxana popping up again in Deep Space Nine. Well, Lwaxana certainly does not keep to herself. Indeed, I think that Picard would probably have been more welcoming of her visits on board the Enterprise if she'd kept to herself more than spend all of her time trying to get into his uniform. So is Suter more representative of Betazoids, or is Lwaxana? Or perhaps male and female Betazoids are just very different from each other. Secondly, and more importantly, I just love that Meld gave us a scene of Tuvok strangling Neelix to death. Sure, it turned out to be a disappointing fake-out, but it does seem to be an acknowledgement on the writer's part of the fantasy that probably all Voyager viewers have about the Star Trek version of Jar Jar Binks, although I do realize that Voyager came out before the Phantom Menace. If Neelix does actually ever get killed, it would make a very interesting and compelling murder mystery, since practically everyone would be a suspect. Live long and prosper, Willow. Well, Willow, you just made my day, and as I said, I'm jealous I didn't get to sit down and watch a Star Trek Voyager episode with you. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Gerard Dizon writes in and says, "Greetings, Rob and Robservators." I was listening to you and John the other day, and you mentioned you were a fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. You mentioned that you liked the first and third film, which was, of course, The Curse of the Black Pearl and At World's End. I also like those, but I feel that the second and third film could be counted as one, as both films are shot back-to-back, and they feel like a cohesive unit. The reason I want to talk about this is because my favorite movie villain is Davy Jones. From the way he looks with his tentacle beard and giant crab claw hand, his accent and intonation, and his presence on screen of dread, he really is menacing for me, except in the third movie where he was Beckett's mongrel pup. Also, his backstory of being a sad boy who got his heart broken by Calypso turning him into a monster really hits me. When I heard the news that they were rebooting the franchise, I was a little sad because in the last film's post-credit scene, which not many people know about, they hinted for a Davy Jones comeback as Will Turner is having a nightmare of Jones coming for vengeance as Will left the Dutchman to stay with Elizabeth. I wanted to know who's your favorite villain in the franchise. Also, if you think a reboot is better than continuing a sequel with Jones and Will. No, I think Davy Jones is by far the best. It's also what a great use of CGI for doing that kind of makeup. I mean, come on, a beard with tentacles. It's great. He's a great villain, and I agree. I think that they should keep it in continuity. I understand everybody's got to change it up, but it's a bummer. I mean, they want to remove or get away from Johnny Depp. I get all that, but they shouldn't, because that's kind of a franchise. How do you do that? I don't know. But I like the franchise. I think, Gerard, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. And I love Davy Jones. I have a hot toy of Davy Jones, by the way. They did. They made one. It's true. This comes from Haxon. Or is it Hassan? I don't know. I'm going to read this. Maybe. Hello, Robert. In defense of John Cena, who cares? That's what it says. I think he should not have apologized, but it got me thinking that regardless of what his fellow Americans on the other side of the globe might think, his comment offended the Chinese people after all. I remember Benedict Cumberbatch had to apologize for saying colored actors in an interview, for example. He said that in a place where that term is considered insensitive. In my opinion, people of color or colored people are equally derogatory terms. Just saying. Would you like me to call you a person of pink color? The pink skins are on thin ice. Anyway, I think Cena had to post that video because he offended a completely different population. In the U.S., public figures apologize for tweeting insensitive jokes, for casting Tilda Swinton in a certain role, or misgendering some stranger. Every country is weird. We should just be more mindful of whatever nonsense is acceptable or unacceptable in other places. That's all. Thanks. I tend to agree with that. First of all, to me, it's intent. I mean, it's intent. I know, like, I've heard, when I was younger, I've been actually called, at one point somebody in my life called me, I didn't know them. They weren't, but in my life, I had somebody actually call me a dirty Jew bastard in my younger days. And I was like, first of all, you don't even know me. Like, it was somebody I didn't know. I'm like, why are you calling me these names? I mean, it wasn't like I was tremendously hurt by it, but it was more perplexing than anything else, because I'm just like, what an asshole. You know, did you really feel the need to call me that? Like, and it was incredibly frustrating, you know, to be called that. I'm like, shit, man, I was adopted. I was happy to find out my birth mother was Jewish, but it's like, it was very strange. And what I think we need to do in this day and age is develop a more thick skin. I mean, if you had a cursory glance, a look at an atlas or something, and you're reading about countries, you know, Taiwan is a democratic nation. I mean, it is. It's been that way for a long time. It's got a rich history, and I don't think it's out of line to call it a nation, but or a state, whatever pisses off. I mean, I get ultra-nationalist Chinese. They want to get Taiwan back because its importance, but at the end of the day, that hasn't happened yet. So if you're going to call a country what it actually is in the eyes of the rest of the world, you should just say, look, don't mean to offend, but perhaps I need some clarification here. How is John Cena supposed to know that what everybody in China thinks? I mean, I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon, but man, we all have to develop thicker skins. There's a lot worse that can be happening in the world. But, yeah, I just think I don't know if you can get people to chill out, but it might be better if we could. I don't know. Omar94 says, hey, Rob, moderators in the Post-Geek Singularity. I recently had some thoughts after J.J. Abrams talked about the lack of planning for the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I know you're not the biggest Abrams fan, Rob, but I actually don't dislike him. There was a plan at the beginning, since George Lucas wrote story treatments for a sequel trilogy, but Disney discarded them. That's how the Disney movies could have gone. Considering Lawrence Kasdan was hired as a screenwriter, he could have written all 3 scripts from those 3 treatments. J.J. Abrams doesn't always have to write the movie he directs, since he directed Star Trek movies from scripts by people like Damon Lindelof and Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, so he could have just directed all 3 Star Wars movies based on Kasdan's scripts. But I'm not sure how those movies would have turned out, but they would have at least had a consistency to them. Back when the story came out, where there were 3 directors attached to the trilogy, J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, and Colin Trevorrow, I'm sure we all thought there was a plan. I think there was, actually. Out of the sequel trilogy, the only movie I liked was The Force Awakens, despite the fact that it was derivative of A New Hope. I tried, but I could not get into The Last Jedi, and I found Rise of Skywalker to be all over the place. You read the original script for Episode 9, Duel of the Fates, which Trevorrow worked on. Knowing what happens in that script, I think that would have made a better movie than what we got. While I still would have disliked Last Jedi, I would have considered the sequel trilogy mostly successful, since I would have liked 2 out of the 3 movies, similar to how I feel about the original trilogy. I like A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, but though I've tried, even after seeing it several times and thinking there are good moments and scenes, I personally cannot get into Return of the Jedi. Well, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. Those are the thoughts I had when I saw the story about how Abrams talked about the lack of planning for the sequel trilogy. Thanks and live long and prosper. Yeah, you know what, Omar94? I'm with you. This idea, well, we couldn't plan for it. I mean, like, give me a break. That would be the whole thing. The plan I would have presented to Disney investors. I would have had the whole thing laid out. And you know what? The first movie would have been about our heroes. Luke, Han, Leia, R2, 3PO, Chewie, Lando. And all you had to do is say, look, we're passing the torch. The first movie is going to be all about our characters, where the galaxy is, how we're setting it up, and then you pull the wool out from under or the rug out from under them, pull the wool out from over their eyes. And then you have them pass down everything to a new generation. So it starts out one way, and you present the new generation, the next generation with all of these things, and then they finish. And so you're left with the next generation at the end. But the fact that they made a Star Wars movie with all the main characters and don't put them in a scene together, that's an epic fail, or as Chris Gore would say, malpractice. And I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Let me see. What are you saying? I don't know. So let's see what's going on. In Somatic 101 sent in a super chat. Thank you very much for that super chat. Dude, respect for all the work you do, but shout out to the chat. What I want to ask everyone right now is Marvel more popular than Star Wars at this point? No hate, no love, just pure business perspective. Rob, keep it up. Well, if I might offer, I would say, I don't know if it's more popular, but it's certainly more lucrative. 23 movies with an average gross of $1 billion. Star Wars can't touch that. That's an amazing feat. Maybe one day it will. So I think right now the MCU has supplanted Star Wars, but we'll see. Juan Martinez subscribed to the channel. Thanks, Juan. And Jamichi subscribed to the channel too. And Willow Yang sent in a tip and says, someone once asked you which movie you'd show to aliens to let them know about human culture, and a person in the chat jokingly said District 9. What do you think is the worst possible film to show an alien visitor, assuming they can hear and see like us? Probably David Bowie and the Man Who Fell to Earth. I know that's a little obscure, but that's what I would show him. Either that or Day the Earth Stood Still, maybe. Probably those. Good question, though. I like that question. Cruz Gonzalez subscribed to the channel. Thank you, Cruz. S. Beam is here, who I saw again last night on the Midnighter. S. Beam says, the children of doom, doom's children. They told my lord the way to the mountain of power. They told him to throw down his sword and return to earth. Ha! Time enough for the earth and the grave. Listening to the soundtrack while at work right now. Well, there you go. I'm glad you're doing that. Louis Terrazas said, Rob, I'm getting my MBA right now, but I promise you I'm no goddamn corporatist. I will not build Pharaoh his fucking pyramid. And if I ever run a studio, I guarantee you that I'll always put the kid in the picture. And you'll be my first meeting. Hashtag metal AF. Yeah, but I might be your first meeting, but will I be your first? Will you write me a check, buddy? Will I get the check? Because it ain't show friends, it's show business. And that's what I need. But Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Frank K says, Rob, I adore your show, and for some time now I've been wanting to put in my 2 cents as to why you're the existential Mr. Rogers. Well then, Frank K is going to offer a explanation. You're a Mr. Rogers type figure, but one whose show deals with weighty adult issues. Your kind of spirit. Keep it up. Ooh, I'll take that. I'm a Mr. Rogers type figure, but one whose show deals with weighty adult issues. I appreciate that. And I like the fact that this channel, which is devoted to hot toys and all kinds of things, that we're talking about adulting. So that's good. So thanks for that, Anonymous. I will try and keep it up. Brandon Sheehy says, Rob, I don't understand how you build a multimedia universe out of Army of the Dead. Well, the only unique concept was the societal order of the zombies. Even this seems hackneyed and done better. Do you really want multiple incarnations of zombies grunting at each other? No. As you know, I did not like Army of the Dead. I found it very disappointing. But if you watch any of those Easter egg things, there's aliens there. I'm sure it's going to be an alien invasion story that begins as a zombie story or something like that. I don't know. But I tend to agree with you. I have no real interest in revisiting the Army of the Dead universe. Just, I don't know. Don't think I'm going to do it. I don't know how to build it. I mean, but remember, I bet they'll end up building a better universe, like the new show will be whatever the prequel series is, and the animated series, they'll delve into things they're not delving into in the movie now, and I bet they turned out pretty damn good. Sheriff Carl says, that's how you become great, man. You hang your balls out there. Jerry Cantrell, Jerry Maguire. Jerry Maguire? I've been playing in bands my whole life here and known tons of old school guys that never made it. Do your shit because you love it and have to do it. Life support and life is short. Yes, Sheriff Carl, I agree with you. Hence the dive bars you frequent. Sonny Dominguez sends in a super chat and says, Pedro's letter resonated. I'm hitting him up on Facebook. Oh, it's good to know. Sonny, thank you very much for that. I'm sure Pedro will appreciate it. Caleb Richardson subscribed to the channel. Thank you, Caleb. The Spanker. The Spanker says, on John Campia's, you all briefly discussed Fire in the Sky. How did you feel about the overall film? The one badass scene on the alien ship, and do you feel an awesome scene was basically shoehorned into a mediocre film? The movie felt like a so-so drama. Yeah, I mean, it's not the most scintillating movie in the world, and maybe it could have, if any movie needed to be less realistic, I mean, they could have used it there. But, I mean, I liked it. I didn't hate it. I found it interesting. But it was one of those things where it's not the greatest, but that alien abduction scene truly was like, I love that. They did a really good job with that. So I can't complain. I thought it was pretty good. Well, listen, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, kind souls, gentle beings from across the 28 known galaxies. A little short show today. I got more letters to read, but I am tired. I've been streaming. I had to get up, and I had to stream from 7:45 this morning to now. And I'm, to be quite frank, falling asleep. And tonight, actually it starts tomorrow at 12:01, join me for The Midnighter. I would assume I'm back on John Campea's show tomorrow and then back here as well. But The Midnighter tonight, and then, of course, Metal tomorrow. And on Saturday, we hope to have the lead singer for Chaosium. So go look up their metal band, but look them up on, is it Swiss? I said Swiss. I think it's Swiss, I think. Chaosium. Check it out. The lead singer will be with us on Saturday night on Midnight Metal. Yeah. So on that note, I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank Joshua Levesque. I want to thank Greg Smith. I want to thank Brian Hepburn. Justin Toner. My God. Wow. We have a new moderator. Welcome to the moderating staff. She has a blue wrench. Well, welcome for being a moderator. That's good. Brian Hepburn. Very exciting. It's very exciting to have joining Louise X Sparrow, who's also here. The ladies have joined the boys. Hopefully they'll whip us into shape and turn us into the fighting force we need. So thank you for being that way, everyone. So there you go. And I want to say thank you for everybody who supports the channel via Super Chats and tips. Very much appreciated. And also, if you want to send me a letter, you can do so to the Burnettwork.net website. And it's free. And on that note, tomorrow, John Campy Show, I think tonight on The Midnighter. And until then, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, have a better day. And I mean that.